This is your host, Danny, and this is Usage Tips from English Plus Podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the word famous or infamous or well-known, notorious. What is the difference between these words? Would you like to learn about that? Stick around and you will learn everything there is to know about these four words, which have a similar meaning, but obviously the meaning is a little bit different when you dig in and figure out the details. Become a patron of English Plus on Patreon. The link is in the description. By doing that, you will be supporting me to create more of the content you love, and you will get exclusive content. For example, every single issue of English Plus magazine and a lot coming your way. With your support, I will have enough time and resources to create more of the content you love. And now, without further ado, let's talk about famous, well-known, notorious, and infamous. What's the difference between these words? Let's find out. Now let's start with famous. If someone or something is famous, very many people know about them. For example, have you ever dreamed of becoming a famous writer? Now, you might be a writer, but if nobody knows about you, or not a lot of people know about you, so maybe you're not famous yet, but you are a writer. But when you become a famous writer like Stephen King, for example, everybody knows about Stephen King. Very famous writer. So have you ever dreamed of becoming a famous writer? Or when we want to talk about the world's most famous picture, for example, or most famous painting. So famous, we're talking about something that very many people, a lot of people know about this person or this thing. So isn't that the same meaning of well-known? Well-known has a similar meaning to famous. However, a well-known person or thing is usually known to fewer people or in a smaller area than a famous one. So well-known and famous essentially have the same meaning, but a well-known person and a famous person. Which person is known more? Obviously, the famous person. And of course, it's up to you to decide whether a person or a thing is well-known or, more than that, famous. For example, let's see how we can use well-known. A club run by Paul Ross, a well-known Lakeland climber. Well, you might not all know who Paul Ross is, but he is a well-known Lakeland climber. Some people know him, but not as many as famous. When we want to talk about famous, it doesn't have to be world famous, but usually a lot more people know about this person. Or, for example, his two well-known books on modern art. Well, obviously, not everybody knows about those books, especially because they're on modern art. So these books will be interesting to people who are interested in modern art. So well-known books is a good word here. Famous books, we're talking about people like Stephen King. People are famous all around the world, or J.K. Rowling, something like that. But again, knowing the difference between well-known and famous, don't worry about using them interchangeably sometimes. Because remember, essentially, they both have the same meaning. Now let's talk about spelling. Well-known can be spelled with or without a hyphen. Usually spell it with a hyphen in front of a noun and without a hyphen after a verb. That's the usual thing. It's a technical thing, but if you would like to learn about it. So if you say, I took him to a well-known doctor in Harley Street, here we put a hyphen because we use it in front of a noun. But after a verb, when we say the building became very well-known, that came after a verb, we don't use a hyphen. But that is just some technicality for those of you who are interested in those technicalities. But now, for the more important thing, we talked about famous and well-known. Yes, they're similar, but there are some differences. What about notorious? What does it mean? Is it related to famous? Yes, of course. Someone or something that is notorious is well-known for something that is bad or undesirable. So if you want to say a notorious person, that means this person is famous or well-known, but not for something good. For example, we say the area was notorious for murders. Famous. What, famous for something good? No. Famous for something bad. Well-known for something that is bad or undesirable, for murders. Or when we talk about a person's notorious arrogance. Notorious arrogance, this person is very famous for his or her arrogance. And is it a good thing? No, of course not. Notorious, not famous, notorious arrogance. And now that brings me to the last word in this episode, and that is infamous. People and things are described as infamous when they are well known because they are connected with wicked or cruel behavior. So you don't use this word for just a silly bad thing. No, for serious bad stuff. For cruel behavior. For example, the infamous serial killer known as the Boston Strangler, or the infamous shower scene from Psycho. Psycho, that's a movie by Alfred Hitchcock. I don't know if you've heard of it or not, but there is this very famous scene, but it is a famous scene actually because it's a movie, it's not real. We can say famous, but it is the infamous because it is connected with wicked and cruel behavior, the infamous shower scene. But I will have to tell you that infamous is a rather literary word. We don't usually use it in everyday conversation. In everyday conversation, you can see people use famous for good stuff and bad stuff. They don't use infamous a lot, but infamous is a very good word. And it is not just about using literary words, but it's about using strong words from time to time that certainly doesn't hurt your language, but enriches your language. And with that being said, that is everything I wanted to share with you for today. Thank you very much for listening to another Usage Tips episode from English Plus Podcast. This is your host, Danny. I will see you next time.